It's 2 minutes past my time to start. All right, so I just wanted to welcome everybody to our shop and hope that you've enjoyed some of the other speakers that have come about this morning. It's lunchtime here in Chicago, so that's where I'm from. My name is Bob Clarizo, and I'm the founder and CEO of Bantam Built Tiny Homes, the tiny house company right here in Chicago. Formerly, some of you might know us as Titan Tiny Homes, and about a year and a half ago, we transitioned to Bantam Built. So I'm in one of our shops. This is our, what we call kind of the prototype lab. And for the last 18 months, we have been specifically building for the hotel and kind of private label industry. You want to brand a tiny house and sell it to a bunch of people under your own brand, then you would hire a company like ours to mass produce those units for you so that you could sell them or use them for whatever it is you're going to use them for. But a lot of our business in the last 18 months has been focused around the hospitality industry. Well, in the last 2 months, you can see how great that is going, but that's a whole nother separate issue. The upside to that is we are back into the consumer market. So if you have that custom tiny house or you have that project that you want to build, you can reach out to us, and we're taking on those projects now. The benefit is we do have that assembly line. We do have that ability to mass scale those products, but also build very competitively both on labor and all that blah, blah, blah. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. I just wanted to give kind of an overview of who we are and what we do. Today, we want to talk about some 101 building techniques, some things that we do when it comes to building a wood structure. So right now, we've got this really cool slanted looking house, and I have my laptop here so I can see all of your questions below. And really, that's us in a nutshell. I'll tell you a little bit more about who I am, when I got started, all that kind of stuff. So, like I said, my name's Bob, and I started building tiny houses right here in Chicago about 5 years ago. Actually, it'll be 6 years in August. So it's been a long road, and but we really enjoy what we do, and we've come to realize that there's some really cool ways of building things. So today we wanted to just show some very simple framing and building techniques that we incorporate that really have made a huge impact on the overall fit, finish, and feel of the home. But it all starts with the beginning. So we thought this is a great place to start, and we'll go through some of those techniques right now. I kind of position the camera so that you can kind of see what's going on here. I'm going to be adventurous, even though I've been told that the streaming doesn't work that well. After I kind of explain some of these different concepts, then we'll try to take the camera inside, and I don't know how the streaming is going to work, but it should work pretty good. All right, so all these walls are built on the floor, just like we lay them down, figure out all of our studs. This particular model has a lot of angles that are a lot more complicated. I'm going to move this camera back just a little bit, just so you can see how. Well, let's do this. Hopefully that was worse. Let's see here. Okay, that'll work for that. All right. There's a lot of complicated angles here, so a lot of math is involved. So whenever you're doing an angled roof like this, you want to figure out what your top stud angle is, because even though the roof and you got all these crazy angles going on, your studs are still going up and down perfectly straight. So the bottom of your studs, when you're framing one of these walls, you want to leave them all straight. And once you figure out this angle, that angle is going to transpire to the top of those studs and start to lay out your wall. We have some really complicated drawings that show every single stud with its length and location, so that when this particular prototype does go into a mass production situation, we're able to replicate them very, very fast. So we take a lot of notes, we record pretty much everything. Now what we use for the exterior of this unit is the zip system, which is pretty popular in the tiny house industry. There's a couple of reasons that we really like this system. One, it gives a very good envelope. Also, these sheets of zip that we use are 4x9s, so they're a little taller. You have typical plywood at 4 feet by 8 feet, where these are actually 4 feet by 9 feet. So it gets us a little higher, and you can actually see across the top here. I'm gonna try, yeah, there you go, Bob. You can see where we had to bring another sheet in. But for a vast majority of the house going this way, once we got past that little, there we go. Once we got past right here, we went that way, then it's all just full sheets. Which again, the less seams you have, the tighter of an envelope you're gonna have. Also the tape, once you roll that tape on there, it's really important that if you are doing the zip system, I recommend you buy their roller. I don't even know if this microphone thing is working, but let me just show you what that roller looks like. So this is what we call a J roller, and the reason we call it that is, it's kind of like a J. I don't know. That's what they say. I don't know if this mic's working, but you guys seem to be able to hear me. How do I close the chat so I can see the video? I'll stay right here, don't worry. I don't know how to work this that well. I've been having a lot of problems myself. But if you go to the bottom of your screen, and I'm going to use my finger right now as the example, and you go right there, see that button right there, and you click it, it should drop all this stuff down. See, yeah, did it for me. So I'm going to turn it back on because I want to see all your questions. So this is a J roller, and we use this on all of that tape that you see. So here, look at this. So you just roll that tape like that, and it's pressure sensitive. So the second that it locks itself in there, it creates an airtight seal. And then we go back and we use something what's called liquid flashing. It's a product by Zip that you fill all the little nail holes, and it becomes an airtight system. And once you put the windows in the door, this thing could go outside for the next 10, 15 years without anything on it, and it's watertight. So that's how the overall envelope works. One of the ways that we're able to frame this thing so fast is we don't include, so see how we got all this like soffit material out there, and you're like, hey, why isn't that covered? And the reason is because we actually build the whole square structure first, and then we create the soffit by, I'm trying to do that, okay. So we create the soffit by just tacking our boards on after we've closed up the whole envelope. It makes for a very easy frame up because we're just balloon framing, we're going straight up. And then any kind of facades that we want to make to the structure, we just pad out afterwards, and it saves us a ton of time. And it also makes it easier on all you DIYers out there who want to try to give some complexity to the overall structure. That makes it very easy. Then we get into the interior cabin. Now, a lot of these trailers, pretty much all of them that you can build a tiny house on, are going to have steel beams running in the frame, side to side. This thing creates like a giant cold radiator in the winter, and there's always been a lot of complaints and curiosity of how can we make the floors not so cold? How do we get the floors to be warmer? One of the ways that we're able to do that is we actually put our plywood down onto the trailer chassis, and then we put 2 inches of foam on top of that, and then from there we put another layer of our plywood. So we actually have 2 inches of a polystyrene or a polyisyl foam board, whether it's Artec or a Pink Panther product. Actually, it's right here. So this is the foam that we use that goes in the floor. I like it. I like to use this type of foam because it's got a really good density rate where it's got a good PSI. So even without plywood on here, you're not getting a compression out of here. A lot of times when you put foam down and create that kind of floor sip system, you get a lot of kind of squishiness if you're not using a really good density. So you want to make sure you use a really good dense foam that's not going to compress, because otherwise your floor, you know, will feel kind of spongy. So this allows for a nice R10 sealed envelope away from that metal. And then if you wanted to go back and you want to do more insulation, you can go on the underside of that, from the underside of the chassis, or before you actually put the plywood down on the chassis, and put more insulation in, whether it's spray foam or a Roxol or just even a batt insulation or more foam board, to really combat against all that cold weather thermal bridging that happens. So I've got 1 more minute to say my piece, and then I really want to spend the next 15 minutes really diving into the questions that you guys have, and really answer all the questions that I possibly can. So I'm going to try to take you inside the house, but let me grab somebody to help me with the camera. Hey, Luke, can you help me with the camera? Yeah, sure. He's right here. So I've got the laptop. If you grab the tripod, we can leave the light, and we're going to go inside.
Tripod or camera?
What's that?
Tripod or camera.
Can you guys still hear me? The tripod. We'll just take the whole tripod. Okay, cool. And that microphone I was using that whole time was not working. All right, so.
No, it wasn't working.
This is what you're looking at.
Hold on.
You gonna fit through the door?
No, I gotta close it.
All right. I'm gonna set it up over there, and then we can just throw a light. Just use this box for this guy, and then is that too tight, or is it still working pretty decent here?
Yeah.
You go there, because they got questions.
Mm-hmm.
This is a live broadcast. We're coming live. Yeah, I need you
to read the question.
I need some help. Yeah. I'm just gonna put some light on this place, and then too much. Okay, so now we're inside.
They can still hear you.
They can hear me,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, because I'm loud.
Yes, we can hear you.
How is this? You good here?
It's kind of.
Well, you adjust the camera. And I'm going to turn this up.
You should just take a couple steps back.
I'm taking steps back. We're going to get through this.
Or take your light too.
Good?
It's not really focused, but yeah.
It's not focused anymore?
No, it's good. We're good.
We're good?
Yes.
Okay.
All good. Looks awesome inside.
Stop. All right. So you probably see these orange plates everywhere for the top and the bottom plates of the wall. What those are is what they call an LSL, a laminated structural piece of lumber. Yeah, I got it. Right, Luke?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Or a PSL, which is pressure treater, something, right? POS or something.
Well, it's definitely not a POS. You know that? So, yeah. Basically it's an 1.5 inch by 3.5 inch. Same profile as a traditional nominal lumber stud, but it's made out of like OSB type material, plywood. But it has a they're very strong, and they're also very straight. And one of the issues that we constantly come into when it comes to building walls inside one of these tiny houses is getting to the straightness of the wall, especially when this is only 22 feet long. But once you start incorporating some complicated angles into here, it becomes very challenging to keep the wall straight on the longer that they get. But the longer that they are, that you can build them all in one piece, the easier it is to put the whole thing together and keep everything straight and stronger. So we like using this lumber because we can get them as long as we want. Now, if you go 30 feet or something, 40 feet long on these, you got to special order them, but you can still get them, and that's what's cool about it. So that's the other thing I really wanted to show you about the inside of here. Now, you want to start questions? Start putting your questions in, and we're going to scroll to the top and then start feeding down so that we can get to everybody's. And Luke's going to read them off, and then I'm going to answer them the best that I can.
Oh, there's so many.
That's awesome. There's a lot of people in here. You didn't know this was going on today?
No, I didn't.
Oh, man. This is like the greatest event in the whole COVID-19 circus. Is the national live web. All right, I'll shut up. What do you got for first question?
What kinds of materials and tools do we need to build a tiny home?
So you definitely want to leverage the knowledge and experience of somebody who has experience framing, things of that nature. You want the experience of carpenters and people that already know about this type of stuff. But to get started, you're definitely going to need a piece of paper, a pencil, and a ruler. And you're definitely going to want to draw out as much as you possibly can. And if you're not a good drawer, then there's tons of online software that you can get your hands on, whether it's SketchUp or any kind of simple architectural program to start to draw whatever it is you're going to do. Because the last thing you want to do is get involved in this with no plans and just start building something, because it's definitely not going to come out right.
Do you do tiny homes that are not on wheels?
Yeah, so this is an interesting concept. We absolutely build tiny houses that aren't on wheels, but from point A to point B, wherever you are, they're on wheels. And then once it gets to the location, the actual trailer chassis just acts as a cradle of getting it from our location to yours. And then you're cutting me off. What do we get the next one?
Yeah. There's so many, so I'm trying to get the most like.
This is good he's here, because otherwise I'd be rambling on. So
please talk about attaching your framing to the trailer.
Okay. The easiest way to show you this is just to take the camera off really quick, kick over the light, and take you down to this one. Am I on it?
Yeah.
Is it fuzzy?
A little bit. Pull back a little bit, get more of the picture. There you go.
Okay. These are what we call a tie-down strap.
Here.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Luke. Mm-hmm. All right. He turned the camera so I could see. So this right here is a strap that's bolted through the plate, through the chassis with a giant bolt all the way down. And then we put all these screws into here. I don't know if you can see all those screws, but we put these about 2 feet from the corner, and we always put them near the door opening on both sides. And we also install them near, see if I can get my finger in here. So we put them next to the fenders, and then we also put them in the back of the trailer as well. So hopefully that helps answer that question. And again, if you have any other questions, if you want to write this down, are you able to comment into the comments?
Me?
Yeah. We didn't really, we've been so busy that we really should have looked into how to work this whole thing better. But my email address is really simple. It's Bob, B-O-B, at Bantam, B-A-N-T-A-M, builthomes.com. Send me any emails with any questions you might have. But we're going to burn through this as much as possible. And I have a feeling that I don't think that this is going to cut us off exactly at the top of the hour. And if it doesn't, then I'll just keep on talking.
Here we go.
So what do you got, Luke? What's the next one?
Just that so we can see your beautiful face. Okay.
Oh, thanks.
Okay. I'm scrolling, trying to get some of the older questions so people don't get left out.
Say their name too, their first name, like.
Okay. Sorry.
If we miss your question, just email us at bob@bantambuildhomes.com, and I'm happy to answer any emails, any framing questions you might have, sourcing materials, etc.
There was one lovely lady that asked about steel studs, and if we use those.
So we have some different steel stud systems. The point of this talk today was to get really basic, really simple, and really answer a lot of the simplistic questions of doing wood framing, because one, we had this wood framing unit that was just perfect for this, but also when you get into steel, it gets a lot more complex. But if you email me, I can answer any steel stud questions you might have at bob@bantambuildhomes.com. It should be like a thing that just comes across the bottom of the fucking screen. Anyway, go ahead.
Do you ever use drop axle trailer, Joe Emick?
So for those of you who don't know what a drop axle is, but you have an axle, and instead of it going straight out to the wheel hub, it comes and then jogs up about 4 inches and comes out for the spindle. They're nice if you want to try to, if 4 inches or 5 inches more interior headroom is really important to you, you go 4 or 5 inches taller with the structure, but then your fenders are going to come 4 or 5 inches more into the house. So it's like it's a push and pull. They're also weaker. So I always recommend that for that 4 or 5 inches that you're trying to maximize inside, you're compromising into, the integrity of the axle to do it. They're probably not going to break, but it's not something I would recommend.
Can you tell anything about making tiny houses out of metal SIPs? SIPs, not sure what that means.
Yeah, so that's, again, we have a polystyrene steel stud SIP system that we've used for a number of years. I didn't spend a whole lot of time planning to talk about that today, just because of the limited half an hour that we had, and we had this nice wood framed unit that we could talk about and explain some things. So if you have questions about that, I'm more than happy to answer your emails at bob@bantambuildhomes.com. What's the next one, dude? We got.
Do your soffits extend at all over the exterior siding when it's applied? By Sophie M.
Yeah, so this kind of goes to what I was talking about in the beginning. We frame the whole thing as a straight box, and then whatever our soffit detail on the outside is going to be, we add that in what they call padding that on later. So if you have a piece of, so if this is your wall, you're going to put your sheathing, everything on, you're going to button it all up tight, and then your soffitry is just another piece of material that goes onto whatever you build it. That way you can tweak your angles, you can do all sorts of different things, and you don't have to spend a ton of time trying to do all the math in incorporating the overhangs of the roof, and then you've got soffit. You want because these units, these roofs don't have attics, you really want it as tight as possible so you don't get that exterior air and moisture. You want to, because if there's no room between the insulation and the top of the sheathing or the interior cladding, you want to button that up as tight as possible, and then you can add your soffits to the exterior. If you run your roof over like a traditional house like that, and then you're capped off, it just gives more room for air, and it doesn't make as tight of a seal.
How do you seal to keep the bugs out, real quick?
Zip sheeting on the bottom, zip sheeting up the sides, and on the roof, we put all the tape and everything together. Eliminates anything from coming in and or out of the house. Water, bugs, I don't care what it is.
Can I use a camper trailer base to build a tiny home?
You can. You absolutely can. And I know that a lot of people are like, what the hell did he just say? You absolutely can. The only thing you really have to be mindful of is you have to look at the part number that's on the RV axle, whether it's an LCI chassis or any other company. You have to look at that part number. You have to look up what that part number means, and you have to find out what those axles are actually rated to. And then you have to build something that fits 30% below that axle rating. If you do that, you can absolutely build something on a camper trailer.
Real quick, again, they want to know what kind of insulation we're using.
So we use a full spectrum of insulation, and really it just depends on the job, right? So we do super cheap. We do regular fiberglass. A little more expensive would be like a rock salt insulation.
Green. What about green insulation?
Green insulation. So then that's like the next step up from rock salt would definitely be like a denim recycled insulation. And then you have your what we believe in a couple of decades is going to be like worse than asbestos from biohazard standards, but that's the spray foam insulations, which we try to use as little as possible. But every once in a while somebody wants it.
What would you recommend for green insulation?
For green?
What would you recommend someone use? Besides Stacy.
The color or no, I'm just kidding. Recycled denim would definitely be one of what? Well, come and say that. Get your ass in here then.
We got 2 minutes.
Yeah, you better hurry. Our master carpenter and cabinet builder, Jeff, is yelled from the side. What is the best insulation?
If you're looking for environmentally friendly insulation, dense pack cellulose is probably your best bet. It doesn't have as high of an R value as some of the less friendly insulations, but it's made out of recycled newsprint, so it doesn't get much more green than that. Yeah.
Do we have any issues with airtight problems with the zips system?
Well, with the zip system or SIP system or any kind of system that makes a very airtight seal, we put an EV. Oh gosh, what is it? The passive air thing.
An HRV.
HRV.
Yep. If you're in a heating climate, you want an HRV. Cooling climate, ERV. But basically, you do need fresh air coming in, and the HRV just sucks the heat out of the air it's exhausting and puts it into the fresh air.
It killed us?
Yeah, it's over.
Like,
I mean, I don't know. It's just a little red thing that said, oh, no, we're still going. Okay, sorry. It just said session ended and a little thing popped up.
Session ended, but we still got 288 people on watching.
Here's a good one. What is your
We're going to keep going until they tell us to go home. So,
what is your wheel well flashing technique? Zip tape to trailer? ? By Preston.
Would you explain that, Jeff?
Yeah, so on this trailer, what I did, first we zip taped over the inside of the wheel well so we could maintain our air seal. We zip taped the.
It just looks like evil.
I didn't even notice. I'm sorry.
We zip taped our upside down. The floor of this trailer, underneath the insulation, is an upside down 5/8 zip panel with the watertight side facing the underside of the trailer. So we zip taped that face up into the wheel well, and then we wrapped flashing around, again, more zip tape, out around and taped it to our sheathing on the outside. And then we came back down over the top and we zip taped to the top of the fender as well. It's kind of like a kick out flashing for our water. And then when we do our siding, we'll also run a piece of drip edge over just to try and keep as much water out of that area as we can.
Do you have to worry about weight with that LSL lumber pieces? Asks Andrew.
You do. It's a little bit heavier than traditional 2x lumber. I'd love to use it for all the studs in the trailer, but it's too heavy for that. So what we use it for is like critical areas. The plates are what I consider a critical area. You can keep your walls a lot straighter if you use engineered lumber for your plates.
Here's a good one. They want to know how. Let me read it. How do you build over the wheel wells without thermal bridging, and how is house attached to wheel wells?
So the wheel wells the fenders are structural, so we can bolt directly to the fenders. That's why you don't see a header over the fenders. Thermal bridging is a bit of a concern with those. So you can see we kind of built little boxes out of like just an Owens Corning foamular. Cover up the inside, but there is some bridging into the wall. It is a tiny house though. It's pretty efficient to heat and cool. So, you know, we do what we can to eliminate thermal bridging, but sometimes there's only so much you can do.
That was good.
I'll come in here now.
Also, there is a slight gap between the plate and the fender, and then we shim underneath the studs, and there is a little bit of just canned spray foam between the bottom plate over the fender.
Okay, what's your technique for under the trailer? Do you seal it off and use rigid foam in between beams? Asks Jim.
So you can do a belly pan on the trailer, where there's a piece of steel plate welded to the underside of your floor joists or whatever you want to call them. And then you fill that with insulation. This particular trailer, we ran our zip, 5/8 zip upside down on top of the floor joist. Then we put 2-inch foamular on top of that, which is like an R10. And then we ran another layer of subfloor on top of that. So there's no thermal bridge between the trailer and our subfloor right now.
People keep asking about, can you tell us something about building with metal SIPs? Is it possible?
I'll go get the thing.
It is possible. Being a carpenter, it's not my preference. It makes
Jeff fucking hates it. But anyway, I'll let him sell you off it, but I'll go get it and I'll sell you back on it.
Yeah. So you can build a really tight house with them. You can eliminate all of your thermal bridging. As a carpenter, cabinet maker, finish carpenter, I really don't like it. I think I can build just as tight of a house with like zip system or some other products that are on the market. And I can tell you that you can finish the inside and the outside so much nicer with wood studs because they hold nails. You don't have to worry about like galvanic corrosion and things like that. There's a lot of other things you have to take into account with steel studs and SIPs, and a lot of that is just like fastening your interior and exterior cladding. It just makes everything more difficult, more time consuming as far as I'm concerned, but Bob likes them.
Are we using select grade lumber?
For framing, you could. This is just commodity grade, regular number 2. I will, you know, it's if you don't feel like going through studs and returning some, get select. But if you want to save a little bit of money, just go through select, stack your bad ones up or cut them up for blocking, and you can always return stuff.
Can we repeat the insulation? They missed the name of the insulation that we used.
On the floor?
Yeah.
It's a foamular insulation, FOAMULAR. It's an Owens Corning product. It's like a rigid foam. It comes in a few different varieties, kind of, bunch of different thicknesses. You want to pay attention to which strength you're getting. It comes in different compressive strengths. So the one that we used is a 25 PSI, which is more than enough to hold up the weight of a regular person.
I couldn't find it. I think you.
I missed part of it. Did you compare spray foam to asbestos?
Yeah, I did.
There's a lot
We think that. Oh, you did that too just now?
No, I didn't.
Oh yeah. Well, me and Jeff have agreed that in like 20 years from now, it's probably spray foam just might be the next.
So there's already a lot of issues with spray foam. If the composition is wrong, because when they spray the spray foam, the closed cell foam, it's mixed on site in the truck where they're spraying it, and you know, if they mix that composition up, it can off gas toxic gases. There's a ton of VOCs and stuff associated with it. So saying it's like asbestos is a bit of an exaggeration probably, but I just foresee more information coming to light about that in the coming years, where, you know, maybe it's not considered the best insulation anymore because of the possible health and environmental consequences.
Speak louder, but yeah. Can everyone still hear us? Somebody said that they can't hear us, so we want to make sure that we could still hear. Oh, they can still hear us. So I couldn't find that steel stud thing. But do you want to explain this? I thought this was cool. On how we do our headers for wood.
Yeah. So I built all the headers that we used in this trailer. I did an insulated header. Again, this is the same insulation that we used in the floor or under our subfloor. It's just a different thickness. This is only a 1/2 inch. So normally when you would build a wood framed header, you would sandwich a piece of 1/2 inch plywood to pad your double to a 3.5 inches. We used the 1/2 inch foamular to pad it out to 3.5 inches. It gives us a thermal break in our headers, and it gives you about like an R3 or so. So it's better than nothing.
It's a nice technique. Again, it's dense enough where it's not gonna. It's doing the same thing that plywood would do, is shimming that out that 1/2 inch. But anywhere we can sneak in that, anywhere we can sneak in that extra insulation. I mean, wouldn't you say? I mean, I started off in the tiny house world building pretty much all just steel stud SIP panels and also just normal steel stud structures. But one of the limitations is because it costs so much more than doing it out of wood, you end up having to make sacrifices kind of based on finances in other places, where with wood, you don't have to just use plywood. You can spend a little extra money and get some of this 1/2 inch foam, and you can do other things because that thermal bridging is very hard to combat. So the money that it costs to do the steel, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just in my experience of building so many of these tiny houses out of steel studs and being there's only one other manufacturer in the country that really started out the way that I did. And I think he would agree too, but what's your overall?
Yeah, no, I think so too. I mean, realistically, material cost wise, we're probably 1/3 of the cost of doing SIPs or steel studs and spray foam.
Yeah.
If you wanted to do kind of a compromise down the middle, what I would probably do is like the Zip R sheathing. So Zip also makes a sheathing that has a foam backing on it, like a polyiso backing. So you can completely eliminate your thermal bridging with it. They do it in a few different flavors. I think you can do like R3, R6, R9, or R10. You have to be concerned a little bit about your shear strength then. You have to start using some pretty crazy nails through it, and you need a specialty nailer if you get to the thicker ones. But it's a good compromise. It does get a little pricey though. So.
Yeah, I can speak to the cost. I know that we have like $850 in lumber in this unit, and probably I would say like probably $1,100 in zip sheeting and flashing and tapes. The reason I bring that up is between the $850 and the $1,200, you're still only at $2,050. Let's call it $2,100 to do this structure in a steel insulated panel system. You're going to be close to almost $5,500, not closer to $6,000. So it's absolutely 1/3 of the cost. Absolutely. Like we've done so many of both. There's one in the parking lot, but it's finished, or we'd show you the system, but you end up sacrificing financially on things that you normally wouldn't have to on the interior. It's just our opinion.
How do you weigh a tiny house to meet axle limitation?
This is pretty cool. We have these 20,000 pound pad digital scales that operate.
Grab one?
Yeah, you can grab one. Yeah, I'll keep describing them. They operate independently of each other, and we put them underneath the wheels, and then one in front of one under the tongue. So the whole thing's sitting on these, and then we just go around and we add them all up. That's how we weigh it when it's done. That's how we weigh it as it's being completed. But the coolest way that I've found to calculate projected weight of a tiny house as you're building it is you take a piece of 2x4, right? You want to do something that's in like a normal length. So this would be too short. You want to do like a foot of 2x4. cut a foot of your 2x6 lumber, cut a square foot of all the different sizes of sheathing that you're going to use in the house. Do the same thing for the wall material, everything. And then obviously you can look up things like appliance weights and stuff like that. So after you figure all this out, then you figure out how many linear feet of 2x4 you have. So I know that a linear foot of number 2 common 2x4 on average weighs 1.2 pounds, and the 2x6 escapes me, but it's something I want to say like 1.6 or 1.7 pounds. Again, it depends on where you're buying your material across the country. Moisture contents are different, humidity rates, depends on what time of the year, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I say grab pieces of material from the stock that you plan on using to build your tiny house, and then take those case studies and weigh those on like a shipping scale, and then you can easily do that calculation before you build anything. In fact, I do that. That's how I do it. And then when it's being built, we have these big blue scales that weigh a ton, but they'll take 10 tons of weight. They're 20,000 pounds, and they're accurate within 10 pounds. And if you wanted to see how they work, did we take one that was probably charged? Hopefully, maybe I did. Cool. So, Luke, you want to douse the camera, and we'll all find out how much I weigh today within 10 pounds.
Oh, I thought we were going to put Luke on there, but he might not be heavy enough.
It won't register.
No, it only registers 10 pounds is as accurate as it gets. And, all right, so then I hop on. 190. So I could be 198. I could be 200.
200.
I don't know. I'm leaning.
How do you take that off? Because you can't really tell.
I bet if you eat that Whopper out there, you'll hit.
Yeah, if I eat my lunch, I'm sure I'll get to 210, no problem. The point is that these things work really awesome. They're really robust. If anyone's interested in this company, they're a fantastic company out of New Jersey called A&A Scales. Again, email me, bob@bantambuilthomes.com. I'll answer any of these questions. And if I don't know the answer, I will find you the answer. Who's wrapping it up? Who's giving me the time?
Hey guys, the next speaker has started. The system will now cut you off.
Who said that?
Sarah Bishop.
Oh my gosh, Sarah!
God.
Give us 2 more minutes. I want to answer 2 more questions.
Yeah. Okay. The other person who asked about the weight limit, they wanted to know if you're using 2x6, 2x4 for walls, floors, and joists.
2x4 walls, 2x6 on our ceiling joists, and we use the trailer chassis as our floor joist in this particular unit. If it's a different type of style chassis, sometimes we use 2x6 for the floor structure.
Are your walls
this is the last question, so.
Are your walls inset to allow for zip system?
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, I mean, we want to make sure that we measure our overall, what our 0 point is what we would call it, our exterior final dimension, and then we subtract backwards to make sure that we get the correct width when it comes to a frame up.
Sarah Bishop just said, I don't care, stay on, we're eating this up, I'm not going anywhere.
Who said that?
Sarah Bishop.
Sarah. Okay, well, one more.
Another dude said clearly this session should have been an hour. If you are on skids, temp ground bound, and you plan to move it 2 times only, do you have to worry about weight? So if you're only planning on using it twice, do you have to worry about
He heard you, so he's coming back. Jeff, what do you have to say to that?
Well, I don't know. You probably know more about the trucking aspect of it than I do, but
Well, answer what you can, and I'll fill in where we.
my only concern would be you have to pick it up onto the trailer somehow, and obviously the heavier you get, the more expensive and more time consuming and sketchier that gets getting it on the trailer. I don't know if it's as much of a concern about moving it. I imagine if you're only doing it once or twice, you could probably get permits to move it if you're not trying to drag it somewhere once a month. But
yeah, I think that if we get specific on weights, a lot could mean many different things. So I'm just going to give you some average weights based on size, length, and width, and so forth. And then you kind of fill in the gap from there, and I guarantee you'll come within a couple of 1,000 pounds just based on our experience of building over 100 and some odd of these. I mean, in the last 9 months, we've built 60. So here's what I have to say to that. So when it comes like, okay, 16-foot long tiny house, 8 feet wide is probably, we can make this into a rhyme too, like it's a song or something. It's going to be 8,500 pounds on average, give or take. 20 feet, 8 feet wide, it's going to be right there at 10,000, 9,500 pounds. We jump ahead and we go park model style, which would be 13 or 14 feet wide, let's say 32 feet long. You're going to get right about 400 square feet, and you're probably going to weigh somewhere in the ballpark of 20 to 25,000 pounds. So based on those kind of square footages, you can pretty much figure out where you're going to be. I will say this, a lot of people think that they're going to be heavier than they actually are. If you're weight conscious about the house, you'll probably come in right at whatever you set your goal to or less. Those that it doesn't even freaking occur to them how much the shit weighs, they're going to be so far over that axles start breaking and embarrassing things start happening on the side of the highway. So if you come at it from a methodical point of, okay, I need to be weight conscious about this. I mean, how many times do I bitch about weight on a regular basis of just being concerned about, it's not even about the thickness of a material or adding this or adding that. Like I always pause because I'm like, how much weight is that going to add?
And it's about how you balance it too. I mean,
exactly.
If you have a bunch of weight in the front, it's going to squat the back of your truck really bad, and it's just super uncomfortable to pull. I mean, they're not super comfortable to pull anyway, but if you keep most of your weight over the axle, or at least keep it balanced, it's a little bit better. But even still, if you're pulling it behind a pickup truck, it's like pulling a sail behind you. I mean,
so the axles are sit like at 60% from the total length. So that means that you've got 60% in front by the tongue, and you got 40% off the back. The reason that we do that is because when it's going down the road, if it's in the middle or if the back weighs more than the front, it'll actually kind of whip down the road. You ever seen a speedboat?
Tail wagging the dog.
Right. So if you've ever been on the highway and you've seen a speedboat like cruising down the road, the reason that they go like this, fishtail down the road, is because all the weight of the motor, the heaviest part of this fiberglass structure is all in the back. So they're really nice to tow behind an SUV, but not when they're going 60, 70 miles an hour. They just have really nice tongue weights, but overall the towability sucks. So when we build the tiny house, we keep that in mind. We try to put our holding tanks over those axles. We try to, okay, if we got the bathroom in the back because we got all this shit up in the front, or we got the kitchen in the middle, we're constantly kind of trying to balance that. I mean, wouldn't you say like 800 to 1,000 is the goal for like a tongue weight?
Yeah, you definitely want some tongue weight. Otherwise, you go over railroad tracks or something, and it's lifting the back tires of your truck off the ground practically when it bounces. So you definitely want some tongue weight, just not to the point where you're dragging your bumper. So,
can I bring materials to a builder? Example, tile pre-purchased? Yeah,
we do that shit all the time. I mean, anything that I don't have to spend time looking for, or so usually those conversations come out like right in the beginning of when we're gonna, try to figure out what it's gonna cost to build whatever it is that you're looking to have built. The most important things to the build typically come out, right? So if that's typically something that's not going to be left to like day 4 before we start. Oh, by the way, I want to buy all this stuff. So because that's the case, we tend to put the square footage budgets in and then, move accordingly.
So someone, Ali A, said the price of admission includes recording of all the presenters, so I will be watching however long it takes. That's a little info for you.
What does that say?
Want me to read again?
How much somebody answer this? How much did this cost?
Okay. Really good question.
I'm just curious. I didn't even
I don't even know what we're doing. I just walked in from lunch. And
so this is the COVID. this is like the biggest web presentation. How many viewers do we have right now?
Let's see.
Now he's gonna get nervous every
239.
We got 239 people watching us answer these questions from all over the country because we can't have tiny house events with actual speakers, so nobody can throw shit at me, which is great. So
I just walked in from one run, then I tried to disappear for a few minutes.
right, and then he tried to give one of these, like, don't be an ass.
Some people are saying 15, other people are saying $10. Depends on when you bought your ticket, I guess.
Some of you got ripped off.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, not really.
No.
You don't think that this last hour, I mean, that's like, well, we're going on an hour, almost an hour, almost. So that would mean, somebody pull out a calculator, but that's like a penny, 10 cents, whatever. It's enough. Keep going.
Really good question. What's the typical height of the ceiling before you build a loft? 7.5 or 8 foot?
Yeah,
I would shoot for building code for outside of tiny houses in a regular house. Your minimum ceiling height is 80 inches. That's pretty much what's comfortable for me. I'm like 5'11". You need a few inches over your head, otherwise it just feels kind of claustrophobic. So I wouldn't go lower than 80 inches, not a whole lot lower at least.
Well, is it, especially if this is a DIY person or somebody trying to dictate terms to somebody who's going to build their tiny house for them, it's a real pain in the ass to trim out that door when you're at 80 inches because the door is basically at the ceiling because a standard door is 80 inches tall.
Right, and your rough opening is 82 inches.
Right, so yeah, I try to stay, but I mean, we try to get like 6'8", 6'9" to a finish. I mean, you just end up with a little piece of shoe at the top.
Yeah, then this trailer right now, I think in the center point right here, we're like just under 11 feet tall to the high point of this trailer.
Well, the way we did this in the back, I mean, it's probably going to look like Willy Wonka's Funhouse, but you know, at the wall, we're at like 6.5. What is this wall? Like, I don't know.
Just over. What is that?
What the hell is this
Let me
stud?
grab a tape really quick. I don't even
What's
remember.
this stud at?
Yeah, I got you. Thanks. And we're about 84 inches, so right at 7 feet in the back of this trailer. So that feels comfortable still. It doesn't feel claustrophobic.
So, anyway, yeah, there's that. So one of the ways is definitely with the dramatic ceiling heights and stuff, you can definitely, there's ways, you just got to think creative. I think that at the end of the day, it goes back to the first question that I answered, which was, somebody asked, what do you need to build a tiny house? And I think that the number one, two things that call it three things that you need is paper, pencil, and a straight edge or a ruler. And really just start creating, because you can look at Google Images and you could look at so much tiny house stuff until you're fried, like me. And at the end of the day, it just comes down to not looking, look at all that stuff, get inspiration, but then stuff it the hell away and just start creating, start drawing from nothing. Because the last thing you want to do is get pigeonholed into what everyone else is doing. That's boring. And the whole reason that we're building the way that we're building and living the way that we're living is the fact that nobody else is doing this. And that's what makes it unique. That's what makes it special. And that's what makes it your own. So try not to get pigeonholed into everybody else's one-off ideas. Plus, if you've been around the tiny house world long enough, there's a bunch of copy haters out there that like to take claim to fame to a box on four wheels. It's just a box on four wheels. Take that for what you want, but at the end of the day, it's going to be yours. So what you create becomes where you want to live. But there are a handful of haters out there, so don't be stealing nobody's idea that they thought was so brilliant. But at the end of the day, it's your house, so make it what you want it to be. And steal everyone's ideas. Like, make it whatever it is you want it to be. But put that shit aside and just write down and draw whatever it is that you want.
And then don't be afraid to vary from your drawings if it's not working.
Right, or to tell whoever drew them that they suck at drawing and that they needed to draw them over. His drawings for this house are somewhere, but they're meticulous as hell. Like, anybody could build this house based on.
The thing is, I drew it after I built it, not before I built it, because we're probably going to have to build it again. So.
But the second time around, you won't have to use my drawings, you use your drawings.
And I won't have to do trig for
4 hours.
Yeah.
All right, we should wrap it up. We're getting probably.
Yeah.
Everyone else is probably really pissed at us.
There's another good question.
Another good question. So keep the good questions, and Luke won't tell us to go home yet.
Typically, how many feet tall are lofts from the loft floor to the ceiling?
You sounded like you're from Boston on that. How far are the lofts on that? I mean,
real far.
Yeah, really far. So we do lofts a couple of different ways. Typically, the overall finish to finish from top to underside is typically like 5 inches or 4.5. So then you take that into account. We've already talked about loft heights. Now, underneath like a loft living room combination, you're looking at maybe we go 6'6", 6'4" to the finished height underneath that loft, and then we go. So that brings us to 6'9", and then we can only go 13.6, and then we take off 7 inches for like roof and interior finish, whatever. So now we're back to like 12.11 minus 6'9", and you've got 2 inches and 3 feet. So typically like 42 inches. It was a little over on my math, but yeah, typically like 42 inches.
All right, last one. Any suggestions if you plan on traveling often? Techniques for wind or anything you can think of? Anything important regarding making moving easier?
Is this person just asked this question? It's the last question?
Yeah.
Riddle me this. Are you building this or are you having somebody build this?
Okay.
Did they answer that?
No.
All right,
I was going to say, if you're going to move a lot, you probably want it on a 5th wheel trailer. It's a lot more comfortable to pull. You have a lot more stability and everything.
Myself, it's just yourself.
Yeah.
If
you have the truck for it, or you can get the truck for it, I'd say build it on a 5th wheel trailer.
Yeah, and on top of that, using this zip sheathing system and using the fasteners that they actually call for, which is a framing nail for shear strength.
He's an experienced builder, so.
Okay, so he's got that down?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yep, and he knows pretty much. Okay, so, yeah. Another person asked when people build their first one, did they do a good job? I thought maybe you could
I did a horrible job. I did such a bad job. All right, so here's the story, and then I swear we'll get off. Like, anybody whoever, don't get mad. Like, I know that other people, we'll just tell this story, and then that's it, I swear. Okay, no more questions. Here's the story. So when we first started, I was so nervous that these were, trim would fall off or something would happen along the road that I used to fly to location and meet the house in the driver at a Home Depot parking lot, buy whatever I needed and like fix whatever needed to be fixed because like it was so nerve-wracking. I had only built stuff like on a regular foundation in a regular home, so I didn't know like what was going to fall apart or whatever. Learned a ton, but also gained a lot of confidence because by like the 6th or 7th house that we shipped and I flew to meet the house, nothing was falling apart on any of them the whole way through. So gained a lot of confidence, but you're gonna learn from this process. And I think that's what the whole point of this weekend is about learning from other people's experience. But you're gonna make mistakes, but embrace them and then do it again and again. And by the 5th one, probably won't make that mistakes. The other thing I will mention is I know that it's a larger upfront cost to have somebody build you a tiny house. But given the fact that we have been for the last 18 months in mass production mode of 8 to 12 houses a month with the hospitality industry, we're now very available because obviously with COVID, nobody's buying stuff for hotels. So we have a process, a system of execution, and those homes were 40 grand, 45,000. So we can build them for that price point, and you'll get all of our experience and knowledge and ability to execute. And you'll probably get your house, if you bought it today, in like 3 weeks, because starting next week, it's like 15 of us that are getting laid off until we figure out what we're doing. And I really want to just, if anything else, if you wanted to build something or not build something, if anything else, we'd be happy to have your work just to keep somebody's lights on or feed somebody's family.
Or even just a shell.
Or just even a shell. Like anything that we can do to help you execute your project better, we would be extremely grateful for it, just because we are at a loss right now. We're building as much as we can, but at our other location, it's pretty much going to be shut down come next Friday for a couple of weeks. So the faster that we could get that ramped back up with people like yourselves, we would be extremely grateful. So again, like 20-foot house, 50 grand or less, it's not a problem for us. We can mass produce this stuff. It's what we do, and there's able bodies willing and ready to do that. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of this presentation weekend, and sorry to whoever I sucked time out of, but shame on you for not cutting us off. No, we had a great time answering all your questions, and we really appreciate everyone that's here engaging in this. So have a great rest of the weekend, and I hope you all learn a lot. Again, you can reach out to us at bob@bantambuilthomes.com. I'll spare Jeff his email. So anyway, see you guys.